Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be talking about my favorite smallmouth bass fishing lure of all time. I fish it every year. You see it on the channel a bunch, and that's going to be the finesse Swimbait. We're going to break down my exact setup that I like to use for this, how to set it up, how to pick the right jig head, the right swimbait, how to rig it up on your rod to catch more fish while you're out there on the water. So stay tuned and let's get right into it. All right, so for starters, let's run through the finesse swimbait, what it is, how it works. For anybody that hasn't been following my channel for a while, the finesse swimbait is basically just a small little rubber swimbait. You basically could use this for any fish, really. I've caught numerous different types of fish on this. I've caught pike and muskie on it. I've caught walleye on it. I've caught like catfish and stuff on it. You literally will catch any type of fish on this lure right here. I've even used it in saltwater for redfish, snook, other types of stuff like that. It's a very popular swim bait. You just rig it different ways in different shape baits and heads for the species of fish that you're fishing for. Now, I use mine most for smallmouth bass. That's really what I fish for a lot, and it's the one that I really like to use. And I find that these fish, it's irresistible to them. They absolutely love this bait. No matter where you're at, if there's a smallmouth in the body of water, you can fish this bait and it will catch smallmouth all the time, no matter what kind of conditions you have. I've caught largemouth on it too, in ponds, other stuff like that. It does work well for them, but not as well as it does for smallmouth. It really overshines on smallmouth there. And then the other way that I really like to fish it is for spotted bass. I've used it on Lake Hartwell a lot, Lake Keowee, places like that. And I've caught a lot of spotted bass using this same technique. So if you have either of those two varieties of fish in your body of water, I'd highly recommend getting the stuff throughout today's video and giving it a try on your local body of water. It's a super awesome way to catch a bunch of fish. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna run through our rod and reel setup, and then we'll run through the actual terminal tackle and rigging and everything like that. I do have a spinnerbait on this right now. Last I fished, I was fishing the river like a month and a half ago, and I was using a little spinnerbait on this guy, fishing some riverbanks. But this rod right here is actually a topwater and jerkbait rod. Now, I have mentioned this is a super beginner-friendly technique. I've fished this on a spinning rod for years. I've mentioned it before on some of my other videos, and I'll link to like my whole playlist of finesse swimbait videos at the end of this one. I've used it on a spinning rod for years, just a 7-foot medium spinning rod, works just fine. I like the bait caster better because I get a farther cast, I can be more accurate with it, and I can use a little bit heavier line and play the fish a little bit better and keep the hook in their mouth. If you like the spinning rods better, you don't like bait casters, everything I'm gonna say will work just fine. Just put it on your spinning rod and you'll do just fine. But this is actually a topwater and jerkbait rod. This is the Cashin Icon topwater and jerkbait rod. This is the 6'9", extra fast, medium. It's a super soft rod. It bends way down into the butt here, but it does have a little bit of backbone. So I like that soft rod because the hooks on these guys are super light wire, so you don't want to bend those out. That's one of the reasons why I used to use the spinning rod, is to keep from bending those hooks out. But I've actually started to use this very soft rod, and it gets a better hook set. I lose less fish actually using the bait caster, just because of that little touch extra of backbone, but that soft tip still works exceptional and it casts very well. So that extra fast tip, sweet cast, super accurate, everything you need there. I have an SLX DC on here. I also have an exact setup with a Corrado MGL. You could use either one. You don't even need to use a bait caster that's high end. These are both $200 reels. You could get the SLX, just a regular SLX. I think that one's like $100. It would work just fine. You really, a good $100 bait casting reel that you can get a far cast with. You don't need to do any fancy skipping or anything like that, so you don't have to worry about getting a backlash that easily, as long as you have the reel set up correctly. And then for my line, I just use straight 12-pound test fluorocarbon. I don't use anything different there. I've always just used straight 12-pound test fluorocarbon, and that's, again, another reason why I use the bait caster. I can bump up my line size just a little bit. I use 15-pound braid on the spinning reels, and then I'll tie like an 8-pound fluorocarbon leader on it. I could put a heavier fluorocarbon leader on there if I wanted to, but this just fishes a little bit better. And honestly, the straight fluorocarbon, since you're fishing a sinking bait and one that you want to get down and stay on the bottom, which I've talked about in some of the videos on how to actually fish this thing, the straight fluorocarbon performs better because it will get you a direct connection to your bait, where the braid will have a little bit of an arc, especially on a long cast, because it floats. It'll kind of drag on the surface and then go down to your bait. So it might pull it up off the bottom just a little bit easier if you're using braid. That's the only difference that I could actually mention would make a difference in your ability to catch fish, would be your line right there. You could just put straight fluorocarbon on your spinning reel, you'd be just fine. But that and actually being able to play the fish a little bit differently with that extra backbone, I feel it catches me just a couple more fish to go with the bait casting setup. So that's why I use that one. Everything in today's video will be linked in the description below. You can check it all out and help the channel out if you purchase any of that stuff through the links. But for now, let's run through some terminal tackle and see what we got. All right, so the first thing when you're picking out your swim bait here, you need two pieces of equipment, a swim bait and a jig head, that's it. So it's super basic. I used to fish all different kinds of jig heads. There's two that I've really liked. There's one, not a sponsored channel because I make them myself, is just a straight up ball head jig. I fished these for a very long time. I have the mold for them. I got tired of losing all my swim bait heads, so I just bought a mold, and it's very cheap to pour these myself. I just buy the hooks in bulk, pour the lead on the ball head jig, and fish away. It will work just fine. I've used them for years, and it's an excellent jig head selection. The only downfall is your swim baits aren't gonna last very long on here. I have to super glue them up on here to get them to stay on very well, because the keeper is just a double barbed keeper and the plastics rip right off. But that is one that I've used for a very long time. So I have a giant box of them right here, 1/4 ounce, 3/8 ounce, 1/8 ounce, all the different sizes that you need. 1/4 ounce is my favorite, and I'll use a 3/8 if I need to get a little bit deeper when I'm fishing that bait. But that's one that I've always used. I pour a 2/0 or a 1/0 Gamakatsu light wire hook in there, and that's the one that I've always used for a while. Now, you also probably know, if you've watched the channel for a while, I am sponsored by Pulsefish Lures. I've worked with the owner of the company. He's an awesome guy, makes all his baits down in Tennessee, I believe. I met him at the BFL All-American. He was a super nice guy, and we got to working on the channel. I've been fishing his products for quite some time, and over the past year or so here, we've been working together on the channel. He makes a killer swim bait head that is even better than the ball head jig, and for a few good reasons. So I fish the 1/4 ounce a ton, either in the smoky color or just the plain white. Those are the only two colors that I really use. They come in a 1/4 and a 3/8 ounce. They come with the same hook that I put in my ball head jigs over there. So the hook is the most important part. So I wanted to make sure it had a good hook in it, and those come with the top of the line hook that you can actually put in these baits. The other thing that they have is a screw lock keeper, so it's gonna hold your bait on there much longer. I actually did a video experiment, so you say, threading one of these on here, no super glue, going out there and fishing with it and seeing how many smallmouth I could catch with a singular swim bait. I can link that one at the end of today's video as well. I caught almost 10 fish with a single swim bait, just screwing it up on the screw lock here. The other two things this has is a keel on the head and eyeballs. I always talk the eyeballs maybe get you one more bite every once in a while, just for a little bit more realism than the giant clunky ball head on the front. Probably doesn't make a difference. That's just a nice to have. The keel on the head keeps your swim bait upright and swimming naturally at very slow speeds, and that's more important. The slower you can reel this thing, the more fish you're gonna catch. So it's just a great way to keep that bait up properly and reeling very slowly. Now, how you rig this up and keeping it straight will keep it keeled as well. So those two in combination will get you great action out of your bait. And if you want to check out any of those jig heads and get a discount on them, you can use my code NQF10. You'll save 10% off your order, and you'll be helping out the channel a ton there. The swim baits I'm going to put on the back of those are going to be the 6th Sense Divine swim baits 3.2. I like the 3.2 for smallmouth just because it's a smaller profile, but they're also made with just a slightly softer plastic. Not necessarily that it's softer, there's just less plastic in the bait than the 3.8s. So they swim a little bit better at slow speed. It's more natural movement. And I'll basically fish Pro Blue and white. This is Ghost Ice Minnow is the color on that one. You can get these as well. You can use my code Quince. You'll save 10% off your order there. That's pretty much the only swim bait I use. I have them in bulk. I fish those ones. They're excellent options for putting on this bait here. You can use I think they come in like a 2.7 now. You can use that one if you really want a small profile. You can use the 3.8 if you need a bigger profile. I've even used Kitex for years. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've only ever used pulse fish lures and 6th Sense Divine swim bait heads. I've used Kitex on those ball heads for years and caught smallmouth as well. Use what you got in your tackle box, but if you're looking for some new tackle and want to support the channel, that's a great way to do it. Now, when it comes to rigging this thing up, on this screw lock head, that's the #1 question I get asked with the screw lock head is like, how do you actually get that bait on there? It's the same way you'd put it on a regular lead head jig. You center it up right in the center of the bait. You go right down. These 6th Sense baits have a center line, so you can keep your bait very straight and centered as it's going on. That's going to keep it keeled, and then you'll push it up to the screw lock, and instead of jamming it over the screw lock, you'll literally twist it on like you would twist on a shaky head worm with a screw lock, and you just pull the tail around the hook gap until it's nice and uptight with the head, and then you have a straight bait ready to roll, and that thing is not coming off. So that's all about my swim bait setup there. That is like my perfect swim bait setup that I've dialed in over years and years of fishing this bait right here. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you want to check this one out right here, showing you how to fish that bait out there on the water, check that guy out. Hit that subscribe button down below, and thanks for watching.